Welcome to this An Ask Brothers Rantcast, the great debate. The time of Mesut has come to an end. And for many of us, we take deep breaths, breaths of finally feeling free from the cage that existed from Mesut Ozil. And for others of us, you know, we have a sigh of sorrow at the loss of this mercurial talent. People saying he was one of the greatest players ever to play for Arsenal, that he would have benched Bergkamp in his time. And to be honest, guys, on both sides of the conversation, there's probably a certain element of ridiculousness. And like I say, in modern society, the truth probably exists somewhere in the middle. But today we're not going to talk about the middle, because today we're having a great debate. So we welcome back from out in the cold. We haven't podcasted with Manny for so long. Such was his disillusion with Arsenal over the Christmas period. But we welcome Manny in, who is going to be debating, I'm going to call it the blue corner. I was going to call it the black corner, Manny, but I thought that might come off as racist, but seemed like appropriate at the time when I was thinking about it. But in the blue corner, we've got Manny Riz, and Manny is going to be arguing on the side of negative points for Ozil. And on our right, we've got a first-timer. We're popping his cherry on the Arse Bros, Ben Wiley, who's going to be talking about the positives of Mesut Ozil. For those of you who don't follow Ben, at BP Wiley, the reason why Ben's on here is he released a very impassioned video about the pros of Mesut Ozil. Ben, how are you today, mate?
Not bad, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Manny Riz, how's life, bruv?
All good, man. We're getting there. Slowly but surely.
So, guys, we're actually going to set this up. I mean, I'm going to be refereeing. I don't have a whistle, but I can yell stuff into the microphone. That will be my version of a whistle. But just for the viewers, this is the basic kind of structure of how the show is going to go. I put together 5 questions, 5 leading questions, hard-hitting questions, you know, from the media monster that I am. We're basically going to put them back and forth between the two boys. We're going to start off like all good sports games, boys, with a coin flip. Ben, I'm going to get you to call it. Now, what we're going to do is this is going to choose who starts the conversations speaking, and then we're going to alternate. So, Ben, heads or tails, my man?
Heads.
Should have gone with tails, mate. Tails never fails.
No fails, yeah.
It's fucking heads. Ben, would you like to start the conversation receiving, or would you like to start the conversation on the front foot?
I will start on the front foot, I think.
Okay, so again, for the listeners, what we're going to do is we're going to do a maximum of 5 minutes for the boys each side, where they get to talk about the question. They get to dig into the question. Then we're going to cross over to the other one, the opposing opponent, to use opposing twice in one sentence, which is very good English, Max. Well done. But basically, we're going to throw it over to the other guy, and then we're going to have a little bit of a mingle at the end of each question with the two of them. Okay, so Ben, starting you off on this great journey of Mesut Ozil, I'm interested to know from your point of view, what is Mesut Ozil's legacy at Arsenal?
Well, I'm going to start off with a couple of stats and records and whatnot. So it's probably a complete coincidence that having gone 9 years without a trophy, Mesut Ozil arrives and we win 4 in 2 years. Probably a coincidence. Probably not all for him. 254 games, 44 goals, 77 assists. On average, a goal or an assist every 2 games. 737 chances created in then 254 games, which is ridiculous. And of course, the 4 FA Cups. Fastest player to reach 50 Premier League assists, most assists in a calendar year, most consecutive games with an assist, most chances created in a season and in a game, highest scoring German and assisting German in the Premier League. So I'd say his legacy is playing a massive part in getting Arsenal back to challenging for major honours. He was a world-class footballer when he arrived, perhaps not so anymore. And due to the turmoil in the last 2 or 3 years, that's probably going to stick more prominently in people's minds. But I don't think you can forget how good he was between 2014 and 17, especially. Staying when others left, you know, your Alexis Sanchez, Van Persie in the past, Fabregas in the past, but he's the only one that lacks ambition when he stays. and no one really cared about assists before he was the world-class player that he was. So I think he's definitely one of the greatest chance creators that's ever played, and I think that's what should be his legacy now he's left.
Manny Riz, over to you, my man. For you, Manny, what is going to be Mesut Ozil's legacy? What is left when Ozil leaves?
You know what the phrase is? Talent, without hard work. Talent, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's Mesut Ozil's legacy. This is a guy that had all the talent in the world, no hard work, no mentality to be great, because it takes a lot to be great, Max. It takes a certain level of balls to be great, because with greatness comes criticism, with greatness comes expectations, with greatness comes a certain level of you get looked at a certain way. Mesut Ozil had all the talent in the world, but he never had the mentality. If he had the mentality of a Jordan Henderson, a James Milner, hell, if he had the mentality of a Bukayo Saka or a Gabriel Martinelli, Mesut Ozil would be looked at a completely different way. He would be looked at as somebody who went out there and put it all on the line every single time. But can you really say that about Mesut Ozil? Can you say that he let his talent do the talking? Or was it his Twitter propaganda that did the talking? Or was it his fans that did the talking for him? Because I tell you what, his football did not do the talking. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been as divisive as he was. There is no way you can tell me that Mesut Ozil went out there and put it all on the line for Arsenal Football Club. He showed no consistency. He rarely showed up when it truly, truly mattered. So Mesut Ozil's legacy is you had it all, but you couldn't get out of your own way in order to show us that you really were a great playmaker. So that's his legacy at Arsenal Football Club. All the talent in the world, but no hard work and no mentality to show it. His fans show it more than he did. That's his legacy for me, man.
All right, boys, you've got a couple of minutes to sort of go at each other now and either rebut each other or pull people's points apart. So Ben, I guess you get the first point of fucking, I don't know, whatever.
No, you know what it is? We knew what we were getting with him to a certain extent. Players with his ability, you could reel off hundreds of names that they haven't got the determination or the work rate of the Milners and the Hendersons, because they're completely different players and they need to do that because they haven't got the ability of the Ozils. And Eden Hazard, he was dropped by Mourinho because he didn't work hard enough defensively. This is what happens when you get these cherries on the top of the cake players. They are there to do a job. They're not there to run around up and down the pitch. They're there to do, make the goals, score the goals, and that's what he was. I agree that he sometimes, he definitely wasn't consistent enough. But when we did need him most, on occasion, 2 FA Cup finals, he'd put in at least 9 out of 10 performances. The assist for Danny Welbeck when we thought we were going to go on and win the league, I think that was quite a big moment, the last kick of the game. So he has done it. He's not consistent enough, I completely agree. But I think you've just got to think your Hendersons and your Milners and your Tierneys, they're completely different players to Mesut Ozil.
See, but I'm not talking about them being different kind of players. I'm talking about their mentality. I'm talking about them wanting to be great. I'm talking about when you think of a Zidane, when you think of a Ronaldinho, when you think of a Messi, of a Cristiano Ronaldo, they have a certain level of mentality. They go out there and they put it on the line every single time. They go out there and they prove that they're number one. When did Mesut Ozil ever go out there and prove that he was better than his teammates? When did he ever stand out as, I'm the guy, I'm going to drive this team forward. I'm going to show my teammates that I'm the one. Mesut Ozil regressed and became as mediocre as his teammates. He never put it on the line and never showed up enough for Arsenal Football Club. That's for me is number one, because he never showed it. He never showed that he could be greater than his teammates. He never showed that he could be the guy that we wanted him to be. Now, I'm not asking Mesut Ozil to run around and to do all the dirty work, but I'm asking Mesut Ozil, if somebody dispossesses you, then you go after that fucker. If you've been dispossessed by a Jack Cork, you don't let him run away with the ball. But that's exactly what Mesut Ozil used to do every single time. So it's not about running around. But if a Dennis Bergkamp is tackled off the ball, then he's going to go after that guy because you're not going to make me look a fool. And for Ozil, it was all too easy to make him look like a fool because he allowed it to happen time and time again. So it's all well and good saying he was a luxury player and we don't expect luxury players to run around. But luxury players go out there and they show why they are a luxury player, why you pay them the big bucks, why you invest that money and you invest that time on them. And Mesut Ozil never proved that. He never showed that. He became as mediocre as the rest. He never stood out. All right. He became as bad as the rest. So that's my point. He never was better than.
Not never. Definitely not never. 2015-16, he got what, 16 assists before Christmas? He carried that fucking team up until Christmas. It's only we had Olivier Giroud who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo. This
is a point that really vexes me when it comes to the 15-16 season. Is everybody blames Giroud for Ozil not getting Henry's record, but they never blame Giroud for not getting us closer to the title. They never talk about his barren run was maybe one of the reasons why we didn't catch up to Leicester. They always point to his barren run is why Mesut Ozil didn't get the record. Why don't we switch the narrative and talk about not just Giroud's barren run, but why didn't Ozil score the goals to get us closest to Leicester? Why didn't Walker? Why didn't Podolski or Alexis Sanchez? Or why didn't those guys step up when we needed them? See, but they always blame Giroud for Ozil not getting the record. But the bigger issue is his barren run didn't get us closer to Leicester. Ozil's barren run didn't get us closer to Leicester either. So let's change the narrative here. Let's not focus on he didn't get the record. He didn't get the record for various reasons. But we didn't get close to Leicester because of that barren run as well. And that's more important than him getting the pesky assist record. We weren't closer to Leicester. We didn't catch them.
This is an Ozil debate. So that's got to be the narrative.
It may be an Ozil debate, but that narrative irritates me because we didn't get to Leicester. We didn't get towards the title. Ozil's record, it doesn't mean anything. Arsenal Football Club were in a title race, right? And Ozil's barren run as well, because did he score goals? He didn't really score goals in that season, did he? He rarely ever scored goals. A couple.
But that summer was a big reason as to why maybe Ozil didn't work out as he should, because we signed Sanchez, and then that summer we signed Petr Cech. If he was to become a great player, like say we went on to win the league that year, had we made proper signings, I think Ozil definitely, and say Ozil broke the record, I think he definitely would have been looked upon as a completely different player now, because he would have been a massive part in us winning the league, and we should have won the league. We shouldn't have just signed Petr Cech. We should have probably gone and replaced Giroud to add to Sanchez, to add to Ozil. We had Koscielny, Mertesacker was doing all right. So, and that's the point. I'm a big Wenger fan as well, but that's a massive downside to that summer. We didn't build a team around Sanchez and Ozil, and then the next year we finished 5th, and that was it.
You're on mute, dickhead.
Thank you. I'm not used to being on mute, man. Usually I'm talking over everyone. So this is me in my quiet form. But I was just saying there is no doubt that there are arguments on both sides, and somewhere in the center exists the truth. I think there's arguments there to say that apex players shouldn't necessarily be in a team that is fundamentally flawed defensively, shouldn't also have the mandate of carrying that team defensively if they are bringing up the stats moving forward. And I think on the other side of the coin as well, Manny, you're completely right that an apex player, if you look at David Silvers and you look at top players, they do put in the shift and they do work hard. And this is why this debate rages on. And this is why, as Scunny Mike says on our other shows, Arsenal fans are so 50-50. They're so in the middle. But it brings us to our next question, Manny, and you're going to kick off the next question. I think for a start, we have to preface this question. There is no doubt that Mesut Ozil declined. There is no doubt that from what we got, it slowly made its way down the pyramid rather than up the pyramid. But I've got a really simple question for you guys to answer. It might not be simple, but I think it's put in the most simple way. Manny Riz, Mesut Ozil's decline was driven by what or who?
Two things. One, he had gotten his contract. Because before that contract, he was putting in, performances that would make the club stand up and go, listen, we need to tie this man down because we're losing Alexis Sanchez. So once he got that amazing, unbelievable contract, the decline began. But really, for me, it was the lack of indulgence from managers after Wenger's departure. Because if you really look at it, Wenger was somebody who'd put his arm around him, give him days off when he wanted it, put him out of squads and for certain matches you wouldn't see Mesut Ozil, because Wenger gave him that time and he treated him like the baby that he needed to be treated as. So having, an Emery who came in and challenged him, and the Ljungberg that came in and, dropped him for certain games, and an Arteta that expected certain level of performances from him, his decline, was more and more rapid. Because now you've got managers who are asking him to do more, who are asking him to show consistency in his performances, and he just couldn't be bothered. So for me, those two things go hand in hand, because that contract, as we see, is unbelievable. 350K a week, loyalty bonuses, to be at the club for a certain amount of time. So it's funny when it's said that he stayed when others left. Would you really leave if you were on that contract and you had £7 million coming to you for just being loyal to your contract? Nah, you wouldn't. So for me, it's a combination of money and that lack of indulgence from an Arsene Wenger type manager that accelerated his decline.
You're on mute.
Fucking hell, this mute shit's killing me. Ben, no doubt that there was a decline in Mesut Ozil from a perspective of someone who reveres Mesut Ozil, and naturally cannot deny that there has been a decline. What do you believe was the reasoning for Mesut Ozil's decline? And interestingly, I'll throw a sub-question there. When do you think the decline particularly started?
Well, we both agree on this one, funnily enough. Definitely. So up until the contract, I'd say I can't remember too many people hounding him out and wanting him to leave. I think with Sanchez going as well, probably 85% at least were happy that we renewed his contract. That it had to happen. We couldn't lose them both. So definitely with the dip in form after the contract, it's not uncommon. You see it with Aubameyang this season. So it happens quite regularly. Wenger leaving because I think he wanted assurance that he was staying when he signed it. He left, didn't see that coming. 2 months after, you got the World Cup that went all tits up for Germany. Unai Emery comes in, wasn't that respectful towards him. And then obviously you've got a year later, you've got the mugging, the new baby, the pay cut bollocks that's all gone on. So ever since the contract, really, it's been a rapid decline. And yeah, probably Unai Emery coming in really signalled it. That was the main. That's when it started to go sour, I think.
Manny, rebuttals, extra points?
Yeah, not much of a rebuttal, to be honest with you.
We both agree on this one.
Funnily enough, we do. See, I believe that, a manager coming in, like a Unai Emery coming in and publicly, chinning him like he did, you would want to respond. Right? That's what I believe anyway. You would want to go out there and show, you know what, this guy has chinned me publicly. Let me go out there and show him why I should be in the team. Let me go out and show him why you don't drop me and you don't publicly make a fool out of me. Did Mesut Ozil ever prove Emery any different? Did he go out there and give him a reason as to why you don't drop me? He made it easy for Emery to chin him because he needed somebody to baby him. He didn't want anybody to push him and to drive him. That's just the way I see it. But if an Emery comes in and that makes you so uncomfortable to the point where you go out there and you show as little of your ability as he did, what does that say about Ozil? What does that say about him? And Emery is not the only one to publicly chin him. I mean, you heard the quotes from his book Mourinho calling him a big baby and a coward. And you hear the rumors about, Carlo Ancelotti wanted rid of him because he didn't fit in to what Carlo Ancelotti wanted him to do. There's a pattern with managers and Ozil, and it all seems to be around his mentality and his attitude. And when you chin him, he disappears.
Well, yeah, when you get that response, it can go two ways. You can hide and get a bit pissed off, or you can go out and, send a message to him. And I was listening to David Ornstein yesterday, and he says after the Leicester game, when Ozil was incredible, the 4-1 win, he came off and Unai said, "No, don't let this go to your head. It's just one game, blah blah blah." And say you've put in that performance, you've come off, and your manager said that, you're going to be like, "Well, what do you mean? I've just put in a 10 out of 10 performance, and you're saying that to me." So, and if that happens, then he's probably fair enough that he's gone, "Oh, fuck this guy," and he's dipped a bit.
Yeah, but what does that say about him? If your manager comes to you and goes, if the manager comes to you and goes, "You know what, that was a great performance, don't let it get to your head. I want you to do that again." Isn't that the right kind of response from your manager to your star player? Do it again. Show more consistency.
I don't think that's how he would have said it.
If you're telling me that performance and that comment for Unai Emery meant that Mesut Ozil said, "You know what, forget this, I'm not going to prove it to you." Again, what does that say about his mentality? What does that say about you? Your manager comes to you and goes, "Don't let it get to your head. Do it again. Show more consistency." And you go ahead and you hide. What does that say about you?
Moving on.
I think this was always, guys, I think this was always going to be the point. If there was going to be a point where either sides of the equation came together, I think this was always going to be the question where both sides of the equations kind of met somewhere in the middle. Like I said at the start, I don't think there's any deniability about the fact that there was a mass decline in Mesut Ozil. A couple of things that got sent in, because I popped these questions up on Twitter, so I'll throw the first one to you, Ben. And when I put this question up, one of the responses was, "What caused Mesut Ozil's decline?" Arsenal caused Mesut Ozil's decline. I just thought I'd get you to respond to that. I know it's a very broad comment that someone has said the club caused Ozil's decline, but it is a common narrative that people believe that we as a club essentially chewed him up, spat him out the back door, and we're responsible for his loss of form, his loss of playing time.
Well, we signed him. When we signed him, he was the best. He was a world-class best number 10 in the world, and he just joined a last day top 4 scrapping Arsenal. Just beat Tottenham to the Champions League, and then we get given him. And up until February, we were doing all right. We were putting in a title challenge, and obviously it then fell away. So he's as a world-class 24-year-old, he's joined an average team. So you can't expect him to come in and be doing what he does for Real Madrid when you've got Ronaldo, Benzema. Now he's got Podolski and Sonogo. So, yeah, say if he went to a Chelsea or a Man City who were up at that time, it might be a different story. But we weren't the great team that the great players thrive in.
Manny, is that the mark of a great player? Is the mark of a great player that you're unable to lift the people around you to a higher level, and that you require 10 world-class players like what you saw in Germany and like what you saw in Real to hide your deficiencies or to do your work for you?
Well, of course, he needed other stars, to take away, his time under the microscope. He needed other players to take the blame so that, his deficiencies weren't highlighted so much. Great players don't need other great players. They go out there and they prove it regardless. And when we talk about he didn't have, the Benzemas and the Cristiano Ronaldos, not a lot of teams do. But what he had is a Santi Cazorla at the top of his game, an Aaron Ramsey that was coming into his own. He had the pace of a Theo Walcott, the athleticism of a Welbeck. He had an Alexis Sanchez that was firing on all cylinders. He had a Giroud who wasn't a great striker, but he could maximize the abilities and and the talents that he had. So he had the pieces there. Mesut Ozil regressed into the mediocrity that was around him. He didn't stand out. He wasn't the shining light players didn't elevate their game for Mesut Ozil because that's what your presence should do. Players around you should want to perform to your standards. And they didn't because his standards were lower than theirs. So
no, but they did. We
anyway,
finished. We scraped Champions League. He signs, and we're putting a title challenge. So they did raise their level.
they didn't.
But how do
That's
you
the
go
thing.
from the 12-13 season
They didn't
to the
raise their level
13-14?
because he was here. They raised their level because that's what we wanted of them. So it's the Mesut Ozil's presence didn't make these guys great and make them want to perform great because they were doing that. Some of them were doing that before he even got here. Asante Cazorla was playing well before he got here, and Aaron Ramsey was, putting in performances here and
Ramsey
there.
wasn't.
Ramsey was putting in performances, not consistently, but he was putting in performances here and there that will tell you, what, all he needs to do is be a bit more consistent. Alexis Sanchez would have been Alexis Sanchez whether Mesut Ozil was there or not. So can you really say that they exceeded their levels because he was there? You can't say that because he declined quicker than they did.
Ben, was it on the football club at that time to, after buying Sanchez, after buying Ozil, we know that next purchase was Petr Cech, and that we struggled for midfielders, and we struggled for defenders, and we struggled with other average pieces of the puzzle. Final word on this. In your heart of hearts, do you believe that had the football club have had more ambition at that time and brought in 2 top players to surround Mesut Ozil, we would have seen a completely different long-term experience?
We would have seen a better team for a start, and we would have definitely challenged Leicester much better. And so you put Partey into that team, and you put probably Aubameyang into that team, and I think we go very close, and then we win the league, and Ozil was looked at as a completely different person, but it didn't happen. But yeah, we definitely let him down. We let Sanchez down. That's why he fucked off, because we didn't build on them signings. We only signed Petr Cech and then Mohamed El Neni in the January.
Manny, final word? Anything to say on that?
Nothing more to say, man. We can talk about, had the club done this, had the club done that. At the end of the day, Mesut Ozil didn't do enough to show that he was, the great player that people think he was. He didn't do enough. He didn't stand out. He wasn't a shining light. And Aaron Ramsey took the spotlight when Ozil came, and then Alexis Sanchez took the spotlight. It was always somebody else before Ozil. And that goes to show you, had we had more, star players in the team, Ozil would have hid behind them, and they would have taken the criticism while he just goes about his business. So, yeah, we move on, mate.
Well, it's interesting, Ben, because this does bring us to, I guess, like one of the most hotly contested Twitter topics of 2021, right? And ever since I guess the rumors, even prior to that, the rumors of Mesut Ozil leaving, because there's been rumors of Mesut Ozil leaving for 2 years. But particularly once the Fenerbahce rumors started coming up, we started to see on Twitter and we started to see on social media posts about the greatness of Mesut Ozil and where he sits, I guess, in the annals of Arsenal's history. And my question to you is, and I guess there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. You can either look at it purely on footballing ability and make your argument around footballing ability, or you can make your argument around output. So it's really up to you what direction you take. But in the ranks of Arsenal's greatest players, where does Mesut Ozil stand?
In terms of ability, he's right up there, probably in the top 5 in terms of pure ability. I'd say he's definitely in the top 100 ever. From the Emirates era, I'd put him above the likes of Van Persie, because 1 year, 30 goals, and then he had 2 half seasons from Van Persie. So I think people look at him as he was a world-class player for 8 years, although he was with us. And he's also pissed off to Man United. So, you've got people that still rate Sanchez, even though he fucked off to United, and Nasri, who fucked off to City. Ozil didn't do that. The haters will probably say no one wanted him. But In the Emirates era, he's probably behind Fabregas, Ramsey, Cazorla, Sanchez, and then it probably comes to Ozil. So 5th or 6th in the Emirates era. I can't say greatest ever. There's too many to count. Maybe in the top 100, I'll say that.
A very moderate response from a very moderate Ben. Manny, in the terms of greatest players and what we see on social media and people putting up pictures of him standing side by side with Dennis Bergkamp, people crying that we've lost one of our greatest players in Arsenal's history. In a reasonable way, Manny. Where do you put him? Try be moderate like Ben. He's being a good sport.
Nah, he's not in the conversation. He's not in the conversation. Arsenal greats do not divide opinions. Everyone accepts their position as greats. The only topic of conversation is who you place at the top, not if they deserve to be there or on the list. See, when I think about Arsenal greats, they don't have recognition just at Arsenal. They have recognition by those outside of Arsenal. So we say, and some people say that Mesut Ozil should be in the conversation, but the minimum recognition that you can receive outside of Arsenal Football Club is a Barclays Player of the Month. He's never won that. He was never in a conversation to be Player of the Year or in the Team of the Year for that incredible 15-16 season. And to show you that type of recognition, a Fraser Forster won Player of the Month that season, that 15-16 season. Connor Wickham has won a Player of the Month. So Arsenal greats have earned recognition outside of Arsenal. Ozil hasn't. So how can we put him in the conversation of Arsenal greats? If
Santi Cazorla an Arsenal great?
We're not talking about Santi Cazorla, though. We're talking about.
It's an interesting question.
I don't think
Manny.
he ever won a Player of the Month.
But we're talking about Mesut Ozil, aren't we?
But we have to compare apples with apples, Manny. So answer the question.
Would I say Santi Cazorla is an Arsenal great? No, he's not. He's not an Arsenal great. He's not. Neither is Mesut Ozil. You cannot put these guys on that pedestal. They haven't shown it. They haven't earned it. How can you put them on the same breath as a Thierry Henry, as a Bergkamp, as a Pires? You can't.
I'm not.
And in the context of Mesut Ozil, in the context, but I am doing that. But in the context of Mesut Ozil, when he put in that 15-16 season that people say is unbelievable, he never received any recognition for that season. If you put up 19 assists, Max, if you put up those numbers, you are in the discussion. Mesut Ozil wasn't. Outside of Arsenal, he didn't receive any recognition at all. Arsenal greats have. So how can he be in that discussion? He can't.
Manny, well, let's rephrase it back towards something. So it's a funny comment from Stan the Man. Let's rephrase it back towards something that Ben actually said, because he didn't say that Mesut Ozil was a great. He didn't put him up there with the Tony Adamses and the Rocastles and the Wrights and,
it's the question.
And guys like that.
It's the question, Max.
No. Well, it's a broad question. So as the adjudicator here, I'm able to thin the scope of the question and work within the means that are pasted in front of me for this like honor that I have of being the judge of this debate. But I'll put this to you, which is more in line with what Ben said. Manny, does Mesut Ozil get on the pitch for you in your Emirates? I'm not even going to say 11. I'm going to say squad, 15. Starting 11 and bench.
Nope. No, at all. No. because I know I'm going to get from him. And because I know I'm going to get from him.
Ben, you got to come back, bro. You got to come back here.
I want to know who's in the squad.
I would put an Aaron Ramsey. I would put an Aaron Ramsey, a Santi Cazorla, in there before I even put Mesut Ozil. He's not in my squad because I know what I'm going to get from him. I want players in my squad who are going to go out there and who are going to show up 100%. I'm going to go out there and I want players who are going to be able to do things that I want from them that they may not want to do, but it's for the good of the team. When has Mesut Ozil ever done something for the good of the team? When has he redefined his role for the good of the team? He hasn't. So that's a player that I don't want anywhere near my squad. So I wouldn't have him in there.
Depends what sort of team you're making, really. When we signed him, he was never the player that you're going to get all these things from. He was the number 10. You get him a free role, you get on with it. He isn't. You want a different sort of team if you want him nowhere near it. It's just a different way of football.
I would
Wenger
want a
wanted a
player.
free role who can get the ball in the final third and then boom, boom, boom.
Sure, but I would want a player who is not going to disappear when you put obstacles in front of him. Because when you put certain players in front of Mesut Ozil, it was easy for him to disappear. It was easy for teams to put him out of games. Just stick somebody on him. Just any player. It doesn't matter their ability. It doesn't matter whether they're good enough or not on the ball. Just stick a player on him and see what happens. And Mesut Ozil would disappear. He wasn't clever enough to, go into positions that would allow him to be free. It was easy to mark him out of games. I don't want a player that's going to disappear when things get hard. I don't want a player who's going to get tackled and he's going to allow the player to run away with the ball. I want players who are going to put in the hard yards, who are going to put in the tackles, who are going to put themselves about, who are going to do things for the team, for the good of the team. That's not Mesut Ozil. That never will be Mesut Ozil, so I don't want him in my team. That's the way I see it.
You're on mute again.
You're on mute.
Fucking on mute. Oh, man. It's early in the morning here. Like, I got up early. Give me a break. Ben, I've got a quick question for you because it goes in line with what Manny is kind of saying. He's looking for hard work. He's looking for dedication. He's looking for moldability. Yeah. Ben, 11 Mesut Ozils on a pitch versus 11 James Milners on a pitch. Who wins that game?
Goals wins games. James Milner don't score many goals unless he's getting fouled in the penalty box. Let's be real.
And I think this is the overarching argument, Ben, when it comes to... It's interesting seeing the opposing sides, and it's a common narrative that we come back to over and over again, and it's this concept that you can look for someone to have these attributes, and you can ask for someone to have these attributes. But ultimately, teams do require flair players, and Mesut Ozil was that flair player. Guys, I think there's no doubt here that this is a bit more of a sensible approach to Mesut Ozil, and we're not going to... We intentionally didn't get people on this podcast who were going to come on and say he was greater than Dennis Bergkamp, he was greater than Robert Pires. It's interesting to think of things in Emirates era and remove all of those great players from Highbury, because I think we've been starved of great players throughout the Emirates era as well. We all know my favourite player of all time, so we won't go into that because that would be a whole nother debate show. The next one we'll do, debate, is Theo Walcott an Arsenal legend?
Oh, no.
And I'll be
fighting
for yes.
Bloody hell. You just watched the game yesterday. How many times was he one-on-one yesterday? Why? Why? Over the bar? Why?
No, mate, my little boy. Why does this podcast always have to come back to slagging off Theo Walcott?
Because you brought him up. You set him up to be ripped
It's
apart.
like I'm the only Walcott fan on the planet. Honestly, it's ridiculous. I feel like a Mesut Ozil fan. That's what I feel like. Cast out on my own, fighting for a just cause. Ben, we'll come to you for the next one because I think this is a really interesting question, a really interesting concept for us to sink our teeth into, because it doesn't necessarily look at Mesut's entire career. It doesn't look at him when he was great, after he supposedly wasn't, in his decline. You can pick and choose whatever you want for this question. And it is, what is Mesut Ozil's defining contribution to Arsenal Football Club in a purely footballing sense? Can you pick a moment, positive or negative, that defined him on the pitch?
Well, given the side of the fence I'm on, I shall be going for a positive. I think the amount of chances he created, it was what he was brought in for, and he did it a ridiculously amount of times. Dennis Bergkamp's the only one that comes close to that level of consistency in creating chances. And yeah, Manny will say he didn't work hard enough or have a moan up, but he was brought into the team to do a job of creating goals, making the team tick, make us better going forward, and that's just look, the chances created every game, he was ahead of everyone else. So sometimes they went in, sometimes they didn't, but that's what he was brought in to do, and that's what he did do, despite maybe not chasing the ball back when he got tackled or not running enough or whatever. But he was brought to create chances, make goals, and that's what he did every game he played.
And do you have a particular moment, Ben? Is there something that sticks out for you as a singular moment in his career that you remember that defined him as that either assist giver or that technician?
The Welbeck Leicester goal. I thought a lot of us thought that's it. We've won the league. We've beaten the league leaders. Last kick of the game, needs to get it on point, and he did. And then we just all fell to shit from there. But yeah, that was probably the highest when we needed him most, thinking we're going to go on and win the league. He delivered.
Manny Riz, according to Ben, the thing that defines Mesut Ozil was his assists. His defining moment was standing up and delivering that ball onto Danny Welbeck against Leicester, which is also a defining moment for me because I screamed Danny, ran into the bedroom, jumped on top of the bed, jumped on top of my wife, and spent the night on the couch. So a defining moment for me as well, boys. But Manny, same thing back to you. Mesut Ozil's defining contribution was what? And can you pick a singular moment that defined him as a football player?
I've thought about a lot of moments, but I want to take you guys back to Arsenal's biggest stage since 2006, Baku. So I want to build this one up nice, and I want to tell you guys a story. Arsenal were facing Chelsea at the Emirates. Unai Emery had one tactic that stood out. He asked Aaron Ramsey, I want you to shackle Jorginho. Because at the time, Mauricio Sarri's, he built his team around Jorginho getting the ball and being the dictator. So Emery said to Ramsey, follow him about. Cut out the passing lanes, be a nuisance, make sure he doesn't get an ounce of space. And we won that game. I believe we won it 2-0. And Aaron Ramsey got a lot of praise because he stuck to his job for the good of the team. Now I want to take you guys to Baku. And Ozil was asked to do that same job. Follow Jorginho around, make sure he doesn't get the ball. Now Chelsea were ready for this because Kepa was pumping balls downfield. That's the way you bypass this little tactic. But Sarri learned his lesson. Bypass that tactic, pump the ball forward, because eventually Mesut Ozil was going to give up the ghost. And he did after 20 minutes. Follow Jorginho around, cut out the passing lanes for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, he gave up the job, and Kepa was getting the ball to Jorginho, and he was able to orchestrate, and he was able to do what he does all the time. So after Mesut Ozil gave up the ghost, and we ran out 4-1 losers, Ozil's number goes up. I believe it was either Roby or Willock that was coming on. Strolls off the pitch like he doesn't give a damn. Strolls off the pitch like he gave it his all. Like we're not 4-1 down and they're 4-0 down at the time and totally embarrassed. 2 number 10s were on the pitch during that game. 1 number 10 showed up and embarrassed us and ran out and lifted that cup, while our number 10 sat on the bench talking shit and saying Emery is not a coach, showing the fight off the bench that he should have showed on the pitch. Baku, Mesut Ozil's defining moment. Cannot redefine himself for the good of the team and then strolls off the pitch like he did a good job. Thank you very much, you cunt.
See, this is what annoys me, and this is probably why I feel the need to back him up a bit more, because every single game, it's his fault. Talk about Baku.
But
Sayed Kolasinac.
Let him finish, Manny. Let him finish.
Sayed Kolasinac and Ainsley Maitland-Niles were by far the worst players on the pitch that day. We had Aubameyang, Lacazette. Aubameyang is the best player, the more important one. Did fuck all. I don't think Ozil was told to follow Jorginho around. He was playing left wing.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
What manager's ever told the left winger in a 3-5-4?
He wasn't a left winger.
to follow Jorginho.
Ben, I
Where was
suggest you
where was he
rewatch that
playing?
game. I
Well, we had
suggest you rewatch
we
that
had
game, Ben. I
where,
suggest you
where was he
rewatch it
playing?
because I did. Because I did.
We had a front three of Ozil,
Watch
Lacazette,
it
and
again,
Aubameyang.
Ben. Watch it again,
Did,
Ben.
did we
Watch
not
it
have a
again.
front three?
Andy, don't make
we
me
not?
give you a
not-
yellow card. I'll yellow card you. You only get
But
17 as well.
go back.
You only get
Go back
17
and
yellow
watch it.
cards on this.
I
Where did he
suggest you
play?
go back and watch that game. I suggest you
Where
go
did he
back
play?
and watch that
I
game.
haven't watched it. I've not watched it since. Why would I want to do that to
Exactly.
myself?
So
Why
maybe
would I
you
watch
should
that
because
too?
because in watching that game again, I saw Mesut Ozil doing exactly what Aaron Ramsey had done, following Jorginho around. If you think
Well,
back to that game, Kepa was not getting the ball to Jorginho because Mesut Ozil was right there behind him every single time. Hence why Kepa was pumping the ball forward for the first 20 minutes and Jorginho barely saw the ball because Ozil was right there, following around, being the shadow that Ramsey was at the Emirates. And there is a reason why Jorginho's influence grew in that game because Ozil fell away from the task. Watch it again. I suggest you watch it again. And the reason why I bring up Ozil is because Maitland-Niles and Sead Kolasinac may have had worse games, but they don't have the reputation that Mesut Ozil does. The greatest playmaker in modern history should be able to stand out.
and you're
But
asking me
did
to
he?
follow Jorginho. No wonder he got sacked. Who fucking tells Mesut Ozil to follow Jorginho around a pitch in a cup final?
That's because Ramsey wasn't available. He wasn't
So
available.
give it to someone
But
else. That is not his job. It's never been
but
his
who?
job. Why would you ask Ozil to do
Who
that?
else? Who else would have done it? But who else would
Aubameyang
have
would have
done it?
done a better job defensively. We've seen it this season. He can run up and down the wing a bit when we're defending. Do not give it to Ozil. Come on. You're asking
I'm
to
not
get beat
Emery, though, am
there.
I?
No.
But the thing is, he couldn't redefine himself and he couldn't do a job for the team because that would have been for the good of the team. Him shackling Jorginho would have been for the good of the team.
Do you think we win that
That's
game
my point.
if he followed him around?
We win that game if everybody else shows the fuck up as well. I'm not saying that he was the only poor player on the pitch and everybody else was great. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying with the reputation that he had and with the notoriety that he's got, he should have influenced that game a whole lot more. Like I said, there were two number 10s on that pitch. One of them showed up and embarrassed us. The other did nothing.
The debate rages on, boys. It definitely rages on. Look, I think there's arguments on both sides there, guys. I think there's no doubt that it is an 11 or a 15-man game. It is certainly not a one-man game. And there is managers involved as well with tactics. You could argue that 110 was shackled and 110 wasn't shackled. So is the argument that it's in fact whether it was, who the fuck was it, Kante or whoever it was who was marking Ozil or marking that space may have been the derivative that caused that. But regardless, it's clear that we both have different defining moments. They had an interesting idea. Ben, do you have a moment? I'm going to do this to Manny as well, not just you. But do you have a moment that defined Mesut negatively? Don't say Baku.
Negatively. Probably when he got subs at Palace away. I can't stick up for his reaction, throwing gloves and whatnot. I think that's when he was banished from the team for 2 months. And then we were shit, so he got brought back in. But I think, yeah, he's done it a couple of times. He gets subbed and he's obviously pissed off and he throws something. So that's probably where it all started to go wrong as well.
At least he didn't lob a captain's armband on the ground, mate. That's the important thing. Manny, back to you as well. Just putting you in a different headspace. Is there a moment that defined Mesut Ozil as a great footballer for you? A moment that you remember?
Oh, bloody hell!
So hard when you're filled with so much rage and so much hate.
Yeah, man, because I can't stand the guy, man. But I would say the Leicester one as well because I was at that game. And man, the emotion. It was Valentine's Day as well, man. So what better way to spend a Valentine's Day than to watch that? But yeah, I'll go for that moment as well.
To provide some balance, I've got two that stick into mind. So on a positive note, Mesut's first goal for the club against Napoli, one of the most technical side foot volleys, top corner, first touch that I've ever seen. I was so excited to see him. My negative experience with him was another Chelsea Arsenal game, actually. And it was actually, I think it was 2019 when we dominated them for the first half and Mesut Ozil absolutely smashed them. They made a change. I can't remember whether it was before the first half, like on 40 minutes, 35 minutes, something like that. And I think they brought Jorginho on and sat him on Mesut Ozil. And Mesut didn't have the technicality or the work rate to be able to stop that, essentially. And I thought that that was defining of Mesut Ozil, that if you put roadblocks in front of him, he was unable to get out of those roadblocks. He just put his hands up and said, that's me done. But for me, that Napoli goal and that game against Chelsea really, really stick out for me. Manny Riz, we're coming to you for question 5. And our final question, we've done 50 minutes. I actually think maybe people who were wanting to tune in and see fireworks and see people calling each other stupid and telling each other to fuck off like a normal Ask Bros podcast, I think we've actually been able to get out a relatively moderate, relatively intelligent, well thought of conversation. I think it goes back to my comments at the start of the show where I said the truth probably exists somewhere in the middle of loving Mesut Ozil and hating him. And it's really just a reflection on society. But Manny, the final question comes to you, and I think this is a strong question. This is a rich question. This is a double rum, just ready to be sat on and soothed and sipped down. But Manny, I don't think anyone thinks that we don't know the answer to this question, but I'm interested to hear your justification. Manny, I've just built a time machine, right? I know I'm not smart enough to build a time machine, but I've done it. I made it out of Play-Doh, spaghetti, and a flux capacitor. And we can only go back to January 2013. Before I fuck that up, it's January 2013 we signed Mesut Ozil. I'm going to go in with it anyway. But we're in my spaghetti and Play-Doh time machine right now, Manny. We're going back to January 2013. Do we still sign Mesut Ozil? Manny, you're on mute, champion. Manny, you there? Have we lost you?
Can you hear me?
Really hard.
Yeah, no, I can hear you now. You ruined my long-winded intro and spaghetti and fucking Play-Doh time machine, but that's fine.
Thank God, I actually missed that. Great.
Manny, it's 2013. It's January. We're in a time machine. I made it of spaghetti and Play-Doh. Are we going back and are we signing Mesut Ozil, or are we giving Arsene Wenger a tap on the shoulder and saying, no, mon ami?
But it was August first and foremost. But no, you don't.
September.
I go and I address, the issues that we had. You buy an out-and-out defensive midfielder, and you address the defensive issues. That's where I would have gone for. I wouldn't have signed Mesut Ozil at all. I would have avoided that signing. I would have avoided that signing if I had the foresight of what was going to happen. But regardless, I wouldn't have signed another luxury player on top of, a team that had a luxury player in a Ramsey kind of player. So I would have signed, your defensive-minded player to go next to Santi Cazorla, and I would have signed your defender that would have, changed the game for us. Your Vincent Kompany type defender that would have changed the game for us. I wouldn't have gone anywhere near us. No.
Ben, same question to you, mate. 2013, do we sign him? Do we not sign him? If we look at his, even if we remove, even if we remove the poor part of his career or the decline part of the career, and we chalk that up to certain things happening, like you said at the start, there were all these things that came together that possibly caused his decline. Did he do enough for us to negate the desire to go back and not make that signing? Were the positives outweighing the negatives?
Up until his contract, I think definitely would have signed him again. You look at it goes back to the players we signed after that. Like, that was the first big signing. We get Sanchez, Welbeck, Elneny, Xhaka, Lucas Perez, and Lacazette. That's it. Up until the contract. So, he could have done stuff differently. We definitely could have done stuff differently to make it all a better marriage. The positives up until the contract definitely outweigh the negatives, I think. Some of the things he did and he's helped us do helped us massively in the FA Cup wins. So, it might be a complete coincidence that he comes in and we start winning trophies again. Might not. So I would definitely sign him again. Maybe not the contract renewal. I mean, I probably would, but for the best of the team, maybe not.
Manny, Riz, final words, closing statements on Mesut Ozil. Free microphone.
A myth. A complete myth. The last time I was actually genuinely impressed by Mesut Ozil, from minute 1 until minute 90, 2010 against England. That was the last time.
A Real Madrid game or something. But
no, that was the last time I sat there and I said to myself, that is a baller. 2010. What I got in front of me was the complete opposite of what I thought I was going to get. September 2014 at Stamford Bridge was when I looked at Mesut Ozil and said, you know what? You're not the guy. He wasn't in that game. He disappeared, weak on the ball, disinterested. And that's the Mesut Ozil we got time after time after time. When it mattered,
he did do his knee that
he wasn't
game.
There. Benjamin,
he did do his knee.
That should be a yellow card. That should be a yellow card.
Just a 16 more.
I don't care he did his knee, because I've watched so many other fixtures when we've gone away to big teams, and when we've gone away to a team north of the Watford Gap, and Mesut Ozil was not in the game. There's countless examples, but I'm pointing to that game in particular because that was the game where I looked at him and I said, you know what, you are not the guy. And it was Mesut Ozil's. It was his job to prove me wrong. And all of the criticism and all of the things that I've said about Mesut Ozil over the years, he's never proved me wrong. He's always proven me right. He's shown to be a luxury player that didn't have the mentality or the balls to be great. So for me, it is good riddance to Mesut Ozil. Like I said before, Arsenal greats are not divisive. Arsenal greats are Arsenal greats, and the only topic of discussion that there is to have is who you have as number 1 and who you have as number 2, not if they deserve to be on the list. So he isn't an Arsenal great. He's not in the conversation, and we should have never gone anywhere near that goal. But that time is done, and we move on. And I hope, and this is to the Mesut Ozil fans, those who have come along and are not Arsenal fans, that are Mesut Ozil fans, that pretend to be Arsenal fans. I hope you bought your Fenerbahce shirts. I hope you bought them with Mesut Ozil on the back, and I hope you fuck off along with him and don't come here pretending to be Arsenal fans. I truly hope that. I never want to hear another Mesut Ozil fan talk about Arsenal Football Club like they give a shit about Arsenal Football Club, because those fans were happy for Mesut Ozil to do what he did and make the club look a fool. So I hope you got your Fenerbahce shirts. I hope you fucked off to Turkey, and good riddance to you bastards.
There's a good comment,
Ben,
actually.
as the more moderate personality on the podcast today, we'd like to give you your right for retort. And also, I'm just interested to know what your final words are, what your final thoughts are, the things you think at the end of this saga, the emotions you have at the end of this, just your overarching feelings towards it now.
Firstly, I like the question, would Manny rather wear an Ozil shirt or a Spurs shirt?
Manny, would you rather wear an Ozil shirt or a Spurs shirt? You have to wear one, motherfucker. You have to wear one, and it has to be in public.
I think it's very close.
Ryan is American, so I'm not going to answer that question. When you guys elected Donald Trump to be your president, fuck off.
No politics. I would definitely wear a Mesut Ozil shirt. I'm not wearing a scum shirt. Like, you'd wear a Mesut Ozil shirt, no doubt. I wouldn't feel good about it. I'd be walking around with my head down a little bit, but I wouldn't feel good about it. There's another question here from Bearded Gouda. has Manny always hated Ozil? Did you
No.
always hate him? Did you
No, I
hate him
didn't.
when we signed him, Manny? When we made
I
that signing,
didn't.
when we made the signing, were you excited about the signing?
Max, I was so fucking excited when we made that signing because I watched him here and there for Real Madrid, but obviously La Liga was at the top of my, of my to watch list. But I was super excited because I still had that 2010 performance in my mind. So I couldn't wait to have Mesut Ozil in our side. Hell, when a foreign player comes, I always give them a year. The first year is a buy because you need to acclimatize, you need to learn a new language, all of those things coupled together. That first season, you get a buy. He did okay. But that first season, you get a buy. The second season, I'm like, all right, the shackles are off. Let me see what you got. It was that second season, it was that Champions League fixture that turned it for me. But I didn't always hate Mesut Ozil. No, I was super excited for his signing. You wouldn't believe it now.
Pepe?
Oh, see, Pepe.
I dislike him a lot.
I just got just for the record, guys. I just got absolutely mauled on Twitter yesterday. Absolutely mauled. One of the most fierce Twitter maulings I've ever had because I put up a post saying I thought Pepe was one of the worst 3 players on the pitch yesterday, despite
one of the
all
worst
of these
3 players in the country.
Despite all these people saying he was absolutely amazing and it was his best game in an Arsenal shirt, and I was like, he ran down blind alleys, fell over the ball, was dispossessed 9 times, but he scores a goal and apparently is a fucking world beater again.
I don't understand why people can't take other people's opinions on players. You thinking that Pepe was, one of the worst players on the pitch, that's your opinion, right? Why can't people respect other people's opinions and move on? See, my opinion on Pepe was the first year you get a buy like everybody else. He hasn't done it. He's only showed glimpses of it. He's a good time player, Pepe, which what bothers me because he's got all this ability, but he doesn't know what to do with it, and he only wants to show it when he feels like it. A bit like Ozil.
I think with Ozil, you can't really argue with 121 goals and assists in 250 odd games. It's not a bad return, is it? It's not like he's come in for all that money, he's scored a couple goals, assisted a couple, and then we've had all this trauma at the end. I think the return has been quite good for the money we spent. I don't understand, like Dan Potts is another one, the hatred for him. I just don't get it. Like he winds people up so much. I don't know where it stems from.
Because I expected more.
I think that's nail on the head, Manny.
We all expected so much more when Mesut Ozil came through those doors. I expected 2010 versus England more often than not, and we didn't get that. Mesut Ozil flattered to deceive. Like I said, man, there's a reason why he never got the recognition outside of Arsenal because he just didn't do it. He didn't do it enough. Held the Leicester performance. Right, and bear in mind he wasn't great from minute 1 to minute 90 because Leicester started the game great. But that cameo, did we see enough of that? We didn't, did
Ben?
we?
Ben, did you see enough?
Yeah. Probably not. He didn't do it enough. But when he did do it, it was ridiculous.
Good question for you, Ben.
It was fleeting.
Good question I've got for you, Ben. When this was finally finished, when the Fenerbahce move was finally made, were you filled with relief or filled with regret?
Massive relief because I'm fed up of talking about it. Even though I'm a big fan, I'm so done with it. Every game, every week. It's been coming. He hasn't played in a year almost. So I think he deserved a send-off game. Definitely. He could have played in January. We didn't have to. For 7.5 years, he deserves something.
There is an Ozil testimonial match, man. What do you think? A guard of honor.
A testimonial for what?
But you say that Petr Cech and Danny Welbeck got guards of honors. Do they deserve that? No. Yeah, Brighton.
I love that guy.
Brighton, but he wasn't in the team. He wasn't anywhere near the team.
Danny Welbeck got a little silver cannon for being injured for 4.5 years. Like,
Well,
really?
maybe he got something. Well, maybe he got something in the background, but obviously because he wasn't in the squad, they didn't
Definitely
do it
not.
publicly. So I don't care, man. I don't care. He's out the door, but consider a
I'm
testimonial
really
game. But please, please, no, man.
testimonial game, not a testimonial, as in he could have been
Come
included in the
on.
squad for a farewell to the
He
team.
wasn't included in the squad, and he knew he wasn't going to be included in the squad, and he was happy to sit down and earn his loyalty bonus.
Would you
That's on
rather
him,
have
and
had
that's on
him?
his.
Would you rather
So
have had
what?
him or Mustafi included in the squad? Because this is what I don't get. Mustafi's played what 3 games this season, and we've
Mhm.
lacked an attacking player.
Jesus Christ, both of them could go. Oh, both of them could go fuck themselves. I wouldn't
It
have
wasn't.
either of them in the squad.
It wasn't
But it
footballing
was a
reasons.
case of.
That's all I'm
But
saying.
it was a case of. Listen, we whatever reason he wasn't in the squad, he knew himself that he was going to be in the squad, and he came out and gave that pathetic interview at the Athletic, wanted to be, shown up to be the victim. At the end of the day, if he really wanted to leave and play football, they could have found an agreement with the club and his representatives. It was beneficial for him to stay at the club because that loyalty bonus was going to come. And what did he do when that loyalty bonus came around? I will pay for Gunnosaurus's wages. It was all propaganda at the end of the day, man. He played a part in his demise. He played a part in him sitting on the bench and earning that money. He was happy with that. That contract was unbelievable, and he made sure he was going to squeeze as many pennies as he could out of Arsenal Football Club before he fucked off. It's just that simple.
Ben, question was Mesut Ozil left out of the team in this last year for footballing reasons or for other reasons, in your opinion?
Absolutely other reasons. Because if it is footballing reasons, then you've got to ask questions of Arteta, who I like a lot, but come off it, really. It saves
What if
150
it
grand a
was?
week if he's not in the squad.
What if it was footballing reasons?
There's just no way you put Mustafi in the squad ahead of Mesut Ozil for footballing reasons when you've got 6 centre backs.
So let me give you this, right? Football. Let's stick to footballing reasons. 6 goals and 4 assists in 2 seasons. Is that enough to be sat on the bench or not? And bear in mind, you're earning 350k a week. 6 goals and 4 assists. That's the return.
For the
Sat on
last
the
10
bench,
minutes.
sat on the bench and out of a squad are very different things.
Yeah.
But I'm
It
just
saves
asking, like, as
150 grand a week.
footballing reasons. But I'm saying footballing reasons. 6 goals and 4 assists. Do you think that
Well-
merits sitting on the bench when you're on 350k a week?
When we're 1-0 down to Burnley with 10 minutes to go, I'd have him on the bench.
So 6 goals and 4 assists for
It doesn't matter.
350. But
Aubameyang
that's
scored
the
5
argument.
goals all season. Would you start him every week? Most people do.
But Aubameyang has been scoring goals and doing his job since he got here. And this is the first season where he hasn't fully performed. But I'm saying 6 goals and 4 assists, and that's the footballing reason why he's not in the squad. Do you think that is enough to sit on the bench or not be in the squad at all?
You have him on the bench because you've got Joe Willock on the bench in place of him and Reece
Okay.
Nelson. He can do it. Like we say, he's inconsistent. So he might have scored 6 goals in 2 years. The next game, he could turn up and score a hat-trick. He's
So
inconsistent.
my thing is, it's so easy to surpass Mesut Ozil's achievements in the last few years. And Bukayo Saka, who was playing out of position, managed to get more assists in the Premier League than Ozil did in his last 2 seasons. It's taken Smith Rowe 6 or 7 games to surpass Ozil's, tally for last season. And bear in mind, Ozil had 18 appearances to Smith Rowe's 6 or 7 in the Premier League. So you may say it may not be footballing reasons, but those numbers for 350k a week for mercurial talent, for the greatest playmaker in the modern game, that doesn't say much, does it? Oh well.
Oh, well, it's over. Thank God.
I think the interesting thing here is from a Mesut Ozil fan or a Mesut Ozil apologist is relieved that it's over. And you would think that for someone like me who was the opposite of that, and I had my issue with him, you would think that I would also be relieved. But I'm actually going to err on the other side, Ben. I'm going to say that I'm actually filled with regret more than I'm filled with relief at this point. I'm filled with regret over the amount of time spent. I'm filled with regret over the amount of money spent. I'm filled with regret that arguably the most excited I can remember being for a player when Ozil signed, me being ecstatic that this was a move that we had made that was going to drive us forward. It was going to put us back onto the top table. We were going to start eating thick, beautiful steak again, rather than eating gruel from the slops bucket of fourth and getting bailed out of Champions League. And to be honest, I thought that I would feel this huge amount of relief. I thought that I would feel this huge amount of this weight being lifted when Mesut Ozil left. But I don't really. I think I regret that we didn't see the best that this player could offer. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that that falls more heavily on the side of the player than it does on the side of the team, or it does on the side of the situation. I think for a lot of guys listening today, they might have expected a bit of an explosive debate between a pro-Ozil fan and a con-Ozil fan. It's not what we've had, and we were happy for this debate to go either way. And I think that this has gone in the way that it probably should when you look at it. When you look at the numbers that he produced when he first arrived, when you look at the decline, when you look at the situation, when you look at the contract, when you look at the entire timeline of Mesut Ozil, when you look at the way that the club didn't help him with signings and he didn't help himself with attitude, output, and an ability to change his game to suit the Premier League. I think when you look at the amount of other players who have come into the Premier League who don't have a skerrick of his talent, who have gone on to either be club legends or top players at the clubs over a sustained period of time, there's massive regret around Mesut Ozil. And like I said at the start of this show, the truth probably exists somewhere in the middle between Ozil is a cunt and Ozil was hard done by. So I'm going to finish it with this. Mesut Ozil was a hard done by cunt. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on the Ask Bros. I'm sorry if this didn't plan out the way that you wanted. If you came here for a brawl and that's what you were looking for, maybe next time we need to get 2 less intelligent contestants on here and really fucking fight it out. But until next time, I really, really hope that you enjoyed this format of podcast, a different format of podcast for us. Usually we plan nothing. We do nothing in advance. We actually put some time into this to work it out. And I am going to put this podcast up on the @AskBrothers Twitter. And we're going to let you, the viewers, decide who won the debate. Now, let me preface this. It's not about whether you like Mesut or not. I want to know who won the debate. Until next time, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Darren is back tomorrow with the Thursday night live show. Scunny is back the day after that with the Friday Ask. Toby has disappeared off the face of the fucking planet, and I haven't seen or spoken to him in like 3 weeks. That's why we haven't been doing Ask Bros OGs. But I'll drag Toby out of wherever he is. And we'll be back to produce you more Ask Bros content. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. Lovely to chat to you. Manny, fuck off. Bye.